Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Coaching Corner. My name's Dej. Today I am here with Shelley. Hi, Shelley.
Hey, hey.
And she is going to be talking about something very, very special. So let me just tell everyone about the greatness that is Shelley Anderson. So Shelley Anderson is a music therapist with a minor in American Sign Language. She is certified in assistive technology, AAC, language acquisition through motor planning, LAMP, and is a Lingraphica technology specialist. She is passionate about teaching professionals and parents about AAC and their role in helping AAC users. Shelley has had the opportunity to start an AAC parent coaching program for families who utilize waiver funding in Indiana. This program has helped families gain access to AAC training that is not typically given by other professionals. She is excited to be bringing similar training to professionals now as well. Awesome, awesome. So, can you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you were drawn to the field of music therapy and your current role?
Yeah, so how I was drawn was I'm not good at science or history or any of the core subjects. I don't enjoy them. I'm not good at them. So I knew it had to be something with music, but I really didn't want to be an educator.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked into early childhood music, and a really kind friend let me come observe her. And I was like, absolutely, this is what I'm going to do. She's like, well, you can't actually make a lot of money in this, that you're going to be able to support yourself long term. I was like, okay,
Mm.
well, I guess I'm glad I know this now. I was still in high school at the time. So I was looking for other things that were music involved. I've always been around people with disabilities, always been really interested in helping other people. And it was around that time that the Congresswoman Gabby Giffords got shot. And information was coming out about how she was recovering and really learning how to speak through music therapy. And I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life. So I did any project I could on music therapy, and I was a sophomore in high school, bound and determined for that to be what I was going to do. And hey, I made it. But it was just so cool to be able to use the thing I love so much and be able to manipulate it and change it to be able to work with that helping side of myself so much. So it was really where it was born out of. And through college, I knew I wanted to work with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I remember my professor saying, like going around the room, we were a large incoming class. She said, okay, almost all of you will change who you think you want to work with. And I was like, nope, no, ma'am, not me. I am locked in. And I ended up being right. And she did too. Most of my friends changed who they thought they wanted to work with. But I've always been locked in with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And that's my
Mm-hmm.
current job. I work in Indiana on the Medicaid waiver. And to qualify for the waiver, you have to have an intellectual or developmental disability. So that's the primary people that I get the pleasure of working with. So that's my current role. I'm COO of this company, so I have a lot of admin responsibilities, which I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love. Allows me to support staff in a really exciting way. And then I have this AAC program that we were kind of talking about there in the bio of training parents. I help get people AAC devices, and that really is my now passion project, is telling people about it, helping more people get access to it, and really helping the families who typically don't get a lot of training to understand what even is this device and how do I use it.
Wow, that's a whole nother side of this what we're gonna talk about. I love what you're doing. It's so important. But let's backtrack to explain to my listeners what music therapy is because I feel like we know music therapists, right? We might even have one on our team, but we don't necessarily know what they're doing in therapy, what is it looking like. So walk us through that and then kind of tell us what education went into that. Do you need to get a master's, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to give the formal definition first, and then I'm going to break it down because formal definitions are
Perfect.
hard. So it's music therapy is the clinical and evidence-based use of music interventions to accomplish individualized goals within a therapeutic relationship by a credentialed professional who has completed an approved music therapy program. Music therapy interventions can address a variety of health and educational goals. And I feel like that encapsulates so much, but is also so professional that it can be sort of hard to understand, like, what even does that mean? So
Right.
it is evidence-based. We have research that goes into this. We are not just playing a song for somebody and magically they heal. Like, music is not magic. Music is just cool. So
Mm-hmm.
there is evidence-based. We use specific interventions to target either what that person wants to work on, or in combination with what our assessment has shown would be most beneficial for them to address through music. And it's really key that it's within that therapeutic relationship by a credentialed therapist. So while music at a hospital or music in a nursing home for a volunteer playing it is therapeutic, it is not therapy. It really
Mm.
takes that credentialed therapist relationship, and so much is built on that relationship, that they then trust us in the music, and we can really use the music to morph into what we needed to best support that person.
For sure, for sure.
So it's kind of hard to give an example of what music therapy looks like because it's such a broad range, but kind of examples I go to is like speech therapy. They, disclaimer, they make it so much more fun than I'm about to make it sound, but it's this general principle of, they sometimes use cards like, okay, say happy, 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 and you just kind of have to drill it because they're working on mouth placement and tongue placement and articulating those words really precisely. I, or any music therapists who are not dual certified, don't have the skills and the knowledge to help them articulate and move their mouth in that way. But we do have music where we can give them lots of trials through it. So if you take the
Mm.
song, Because I'm Happy, Clap Along, If You Feel Like a Room Without a
Yeah.
Roof, it says happy like 40 times in that song. So all I have to do is use the music to say because I'm, and if I do a full stop to the music, you feel compelled to finish that sentence. You feel like you have to insert that word there. It's because of like a 5/1 cadence, how music is structured. It draws you in and it feels unfinished until they finish it with that word they need practice on. So it's kind of like a speech goal. We also can work on regulation, frustration tolerance, emotional skills, fine and gross motor. A lot of it's playing instruments. So like you could take castanets and work on your pincher graphs because you have to pinch it together to make it sound. Or I might teach piano, not for the sake of learning, so that'd be music education, but for the sake of isolating their fingers or attention to task or frustration tolerance, because it's hard to learn how to read dots on a page,
Yeah.
and you have to be able to keep yourself calm enough to not have your brain flip and go into this like dysregulated mode, because then you can't learn anything. So really those like non-musical goals are what we're targeting primarily.
That is so fascinating. Like my mind is like blown. Like when you said like when you were in school, like oh my gosh. So okay, that makes so much sense. I'm telling you, my mind is going crazy right now. Okay, so this sounds like collaboration city. So like when you were during your schooling, did they talk a lot about like, finger isolation and how you work with the OT, or like, using all of those repetitions you can get through music and how you'll collaborate with an SLP? Did they talk about that during your schooling?
Not as much as I think we could have.
Mm-hmm.
To their credit, I may not have picked up on it. Like, could be a me problem.
Right? That's me.
It definitely could be a me problem. It was hit on a little bit. I think looking back, if they did emphasize it, I'm so sorry, Radford. I don't want to do you dirty like this. But if they didn't, I think it's important to emphasize to students that finger isolation is something we can work on and give opportunities for, but we should be consulting with an OT, especially if their fingers
Mm,
are particularly curled. I can't just get my hand in there and stretch them
mm-hmm.
out. You might literally hurt somebody. And I don't know that that was emphasized as much as it could be. And I will gently say that kind of across scopes. Other professions get real
Yeah.
touchy with us, and honestly, we get real touchy with them of saying, OT, you can't use wheels on the bus to roll your arms or walk to their favorite song. I have a monopoly on music. I'm like, no, that's so not how that works. There are so many opportunities to collaborate, and when we're able to, such cool things happen.
Yes, and I always tell people this, like, this is why I create this podcast because there are so many opportunities, and if we
Yeah.
just lean into them, like magic could happen. That's where the magic could
Yes.
happen. So, speaking of that, when did you begin diving into AAC? Because I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, I assume it wasn't like, a huge topic in music therapy school. When did you begin like deep diving on AAC in your practice?
Yeah, you're right. It was not touched on really at all in my schooling. It's not something that music therapists have a specialty in typically, and it's not something that we really have time for in our schooling. I wasn't exposed to it until my internship. And
Mm.
even then, I was like, hey, supervisor, what's that? It's like, I don't really know. And I was like, well, I feel like that's a problem. What do you mean you don't know? And so my first deep dive was my final project for internship. I was like, well, somebody's got to know what this is. It looks cool. I'll do it. And I loved it. I feel like that was really my jumping point off was that final project where I got to deep dive into it. And then I took a few years off from looking at it. I didn't really know how to use it in my practice. I didn't necessarily have a caseload that I needed to know that. Fast forward into the last 3 years, and I have more of a caseload that needed me to know about it. I had some spare-ish time to deep dive, and really it's been in those last 3 years where I got to go to school for assistive technology, go to school for AAC, certificates to give me my background knowledge that I use today.
So, can you kind of let's dig into the music interventions a little bit? I know you said you're kind of springing like you're targeting a lot of different aspects, right? And you're weaving music into it and getting all of those opportunities. Can you kind of tell us more about like I always go back to during your schooling, what did they necessarily say, okay, these are the things that you want to work on. So like for example, in speech, we know that in language for preschoolers we're working on categories and verbs and this and that. What did they really pinpoint in your schooling as far as musical interventions?
Yeah, so we looked at it more in kind of broad scope
Mm-hmm.
things. Almost think of your major body parts. So your motor skills, your
Mm.
cognitive abilities, going inside the body, your
Mm-hmm.
emotions, and social interactions, and really focus broadly up there. And
Wow.
then to add the music to that, we can do songwriting where we're creating it ourselves, or doing like a piggyback songwriting where we change some of the words to a song that's not written by us. We can do instrument play. We can do improvisation where we're making whatever it is up on the spot. There's nothing preconceived, it's just right then
Yeah.
and there. Um, and then we can use singing also. And it's from both of those kinds of broad categories that we then intersect of using piano for fine motor, or maybe I use drumming to help them with their gait to keep a steady tempo. And there's rhythm entrainment that you can do with that to help people get a more steady gait rather than maybe a shuffle or something else with their gait.
So you are essentially weaving in music and these different avenues that you can take music into these more overarching goals. Like that's amazing. So then let's talk about how you weave in AAC to that.
Mm. Yeah, so really when I start incorporating AAC for somebody who already has it, I am looking for a couple different things. One, we have to just give them the vocabulary, like the actual
Yeah.
words, before they can start applying words to specific things. And I do
Hmm.
that a lot through singing. So if I were to do this with somebody who was able to speak, then I would play, and when the music stops, they were expected to fill in the next word. Or
Mm-hmm.
some people do better if I keep playing my instrument, but my voice drops out and I hang out on whatever chord I'm on playing until they say
Mm-hmm.
that word. Same thing applies for AAC, where I keep going, and then I'm asking them to say go or in or out or come. Some of those core vocabulary words are most used words in language to just get the vocabulary under their belt. If we do Let It Go, it says go 100 million times in that song.
For sure.
And now they can apply that to some other scenario. And then I'm relying on parents to kind of broadly use that. Okay, it's time to go to therapy, to go to school, to go eat, to go to your room, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Kind of broaden that.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to be a music therapist now. I
Hey,
love
join us.
it. So, so on that topic, I guess I feel like people assume that you have to like know how to play every single instrument that's out there. Like I was talking to my music teacher friend and he's like kind of looking to get out of like education and be more of a therapist, right? He sees my life and he's like, "Oh my gosh, would love to do that." And I was like, "Have you ever thought of music therapy?" And he was like, "Well, I only know how to play the piano." I'm like, "Well, I'm sure like not everyone goes in knowing how to play a million instruments, you know?" So can you talk about that assumption?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen up, friend. You can do it. So, throughout our schooling, that's part of what happens is we gain these tools to get accepted into a music therapy program. You are accepted into the music department. So you do have a primary
Mm.
instrument. For him, it might be piano. For me, it was voice. And you come in,
Mhm.
and that instrument is strong enough to get you into music school.
Mm.
There, we are functionally trained. And I emphasize functionally. I am not a classical pianist. I can play chords and manipulate the music to do what I need in piano, guitar, percussion, and a lot of us have experience in ukulele as well. And then that's our scope of practice. Can we use the flute or the trombone or the timpani or the marimba? Absolutely. But I don't have to be functionally trained in all of those, just those core of guitar, piano, percussion, and we use ukulele a lot.
Trying to look up programs because this sounds amazing. So, fun fact for anyone listening, I was classically trained in voice all throughout high school and I've always been in like musical theater and things like that. And so I feel like that gift has just gone to the wayside. I mean, I do work with the littles and I sing quite a bit. And then I feel like all of my other therapy friends are like, "Oh, you have a nice voice." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't ever get to use that gift anymore." But this sounds like amazing. Like I think I'm just gonna drop my SLP hat and become a music therapist.
Hey, you can
Okay,
do both and just marry those
I
suckers
know.
together.
Just have a like you're doing AAC, you're doing music therapy. And I feel like you're marrying those two things so well. So okay, on that topic, tell us some success stories with music therapy and AAC. When you really started to, after your deep dive, you started introducing this and interweaving it into your therapy sessions. Tell us some success stories.
Yeah, so my favorite success story is I see a girl, she's in high school, and she has a stutter that really impacts her most when she has big feelings, particularly excitement. She just gets stuck on a word. So, a lot of times in music, her all time favorite song is What Makes You Beautiful. And she can't get the title out. She gets stuck on saying be over and over again. It's like her brain skips the entire what makes you and she goes straight to beautiful, but can't even get the full word out. And she knows that she can't. She knows what she wants to say. She just can't get it out. And she gets frustrated with it, understandably.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I don't know. She can't express herself sometimes. Mom, are you okay with me just seeing what happens? I'm going to introduce Lamp Words for Life, that one specifically because I'm the most familiar with it. I can model more successfully and quickly on there. And she's like, sure. So I start modeling on it, and this girl picks it up so quickly. I can model things once or twice, and then she is on it. She has it down pat from there, and she starts really quickly understanding, oh, this is not a game. This affects my environment.
Yeah.
This affects the song. I don't have to say it with my voice when I can't get the word out. I can talk, and when I get stuck, I can go to the device and finish my sentence. And she just absolutely blossomed from there. It's so cool. Her mom has been so supportive. Her school has been supportive and making sure she has a school iPad that has lamp on it. And we're using that for now. When she starts looking at graduating time frame, we'll get her own, but schools is what she's using now. And she uses it all the time. We programmed personal fringe in there, her dog's name, songs, so she's able to successfully participate in a group now without kind of feeling that embarrassment of getting stuck on words so frequently. She can just go say what she needs to. And I feel like on top of that major win, her dad hadn't seen her use it in music yet. Um, Afterwards, she sees two of us here at the practice. She has to name the song that she did and the instrument, and that's kind of how she tells her parents what she's been up to. And
Very cool.
it's so cool. Afterwards, her dad was like, okay, what have you been doing? How was it? And she whips out the iPad and tells him with ease, I did What Makes You Beautiful with the egg shaker. I did Let It Go with this. I did this with this and this with this. And he goes, whoa. I didn't get it
Whoa.
until I saw her use it now. And I know exactly what she did in music, and I've never known that before. We got to get on board with this. And I was like, wow, AAC success. Now she's just
Wow.
blossomed.
Wow. Okay, okay, I have so many questions that just spring. That's why you saw me writing. I'm like, oh my gosh, so many questions. Okay, so to start off, I feel like, stuttering, immediately equate that with, okay, let's go to a speech therapist, right? So, how did family know to reach out to you? Were you already working with, I might have missed that part.
Yeah. So I had already been working with the family. She saw 3 therapists before me just because people like moved on from the job or schedules change. She had 3 therapists before me who had been targeting more speech goals, which we know better and do better. We don't work on those kinds of goals anymore. But it just wasn't going anywhere. And what I had figured out was just like you can learn to speak and go around damaged parts of the brain by singing, because music lights up your whole brain and can go around parts easier, then what happens if I sing, That's What Makes You Beautiful, and she sings with me? Can she get the title out now? And the answer was yes. So for
Mm,
her, the singing is the key. It bypasses that part of her brain that is just stuck repeating, and it says, oh, I know how this song goes, and she'll sing it. For some, that's like melodic intonation therapy, where you put everything to a rhythm and to a melody. I want applesauce, please. I need to
mm-hmm,
go outside. And that's just how they can learn. For her, it's not always that easy. It needed to be a part of a song that already existed,
mm-hmm,
but she was able to get more specific with it. She'll say music instead of music.
mm-hmm,
Well, I'm not a speech therapist. I don't have the tools to correct that with her, but I can say, oh, there's no in music. Here we go. And for her, it was
mm-hmm,
really important to keep the music underneath going. And I actually, this doesn't go for everybody, but for her, I sped up the song. So we used
mm,
Better When I'm Dancing to Better Making Music. So I feel better making music. Yeah, yeah, better making. And as I sped it up and made it faster and faster, her brain didn't have time to get stuck. She was able to bypass that, just keep singing the song. And sometimes, whether she said it or not, I moved on without her. And we have a
mm-hmm,
conversation around, hey, your brain missed it. I know you had it, but your brain missed it. And I want your brain to get past that and to just keep going with me, stay in the music. And when she does that, she's very successful at being able to correct her own words without me having to do that work.
I am learning so much. So you talked about melodic intonation therapy. I remember that from graduate school. I actually went into graduate school thinking I was going to be full adult, and that completely changed. And so with a lot of our aphasic patients, melodic intonation therapy is used quite a bit. And so that reminds me of what you talked about earlier about how, sometimes the collaboration piece gets sticky because it's like, wait, I learned about that in grad school. I thought that was for us, like,
Mm-hmm.
so with like integrating AAC, sometimes introducing AAC, getting a stuttering client, all of these different things that might be, you know, on a SLP's toes, quote unquote. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that way, but others might.
Yeah.
How do you kind of navigate those different situations? Because you seem like such an open, soul and a really great person to collaborate with. How do you kind of navigate that when it's not as easy?
Yeah. So I did it the wrong way and learned. I came in really strong on a team. For Lamp Words for Life specifically, you leave the homepage alone. Like, if there is nothing on there that is so important to know, it's don't touch the homepage, because if you do, you've botched the whole device. Well, they didn't know better, and botched the whole device. They are doing what they believe is best for the person. They're narrowing down choices. They're putting their favorite things on the homepage to make it really success based. But in doing that, they botched the app. And I came in pretty strong about
Mm-hmm.
that and saying, like, hey, nope, we can't do this. He can be successful. We have to model first. And what ended up happening is the SLP and I were at odds, which put the family in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the worst
Mm-hmm.
feeling ever. I got supervision around it to be like, I don't know how to get out of this now, but
Mm-hmm.
this family can't be stuck in the middle. They're stuck between I see and I agree with me, but they're at this school all day, every day. And so, like, they have to go to this school. I have a job. We can't pull them. What
Right.
do you expect me to do? So I come at it much more gently now. While I have big opinions, I don't start with those. And I
Yeah,
try
yeah.
to find out where they're coming from and try to keep it very me focused in a way that is, I have had success with them in music doing this. I brought in this vocabulary and it was so cool when they did this. So this is
Mm-hmm.
what I'm doing. This is how I have seen it successful. What are you doing? What are some wins? And if they're open to collaborating, a lot of times that is a good jumping off point where they're like, oh, I didn't even know they could do that. And I was like, hold up, I didn't know they could do that. Cool. If they're not open to collaborating, there's obviously like nothing I can do about that.
For
I'll
sure.
continue to do parent education and teach them. But really cool things have happened. I had somebody who now has AAC, but we were working on speech at the time, who had, they were apraxia cards where it breaks down the words super small. Well, I went in, observed a session. The SLP trained me how to use the words. Being a vocalist, I know like the different symbols and things for how a word
Mm-hmm.
should sound and like a sound should sound.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like, here, these are the cards we're using. Use these. And like strict instructions by me and her of like, I'm not fixing it. I'm giving opportunities. And we
Mm-hmm.
would use them in songs or as flashcards to music to say like, okay, it's been so many years, I'm not even going to try to like emulate an apraxia card, but like this is where we're at. And then she would tell me, okay, great, we have new cards now, and she'd send them to me. So with
I love
that,
that.
I'm able to give him practice with skills she's working on within my scope. And for her, he was just whispering. And so mid
Mm.
session, she looks at me and she's like, do you have anything for this? He can talk louder. He's just not. And I don't know why. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't selective mutism. It was like clearly a choice for him. And so I was like, I don't know. Woo! Like raised my hands in the air, like gave some musical cues and was like, woo! And like cheered along. And I said, loud, big, and sang it at kind of the top of my little lungs. And he was like, whoa, woo, me too. And then he got really loud and she's like, dang, that was so easy. So sometimes it's just like, here, use this musical element, get loud, get proud in your voice. If you can't sing, it doesn't matter. Our clients don't care that we can't sing. Our clients care that
Mm-hmm.
we're engaged and fun and like having a good time with them. So if you use that to your advantage, you can use these elements and now we're beautifully collaborated.
Absolutely. I love that you talked about how, I went at it a different way and it wasn't so
Mm-hmm.
successful. And then I
Yeah.
learned from that and now here we are. I love that. That's key. So let me backtrack a little bit. You talked about how that one client had three therapists before you. Were you talking about music therapists or speech therapists?
music therapists.
They had, okay, so they had three, that's
Mm-hmm.
what I thought. Three music therapists before you. So are there like specialties within music therapists?
Yeah, absolutely. So some are like music therapy specific specialties. There's a Nordoff Robbins approach, which is very
Mm,
improvisational. There's guided imagery in music, GIM, that is specific to music therapy. And then there's others that a lot of us have and is wildly used in music therapy, like DIR floor time.
mm-hmm.
That you don't have to be a music therapist. Anybody can be floor time
Right.
certified, but it's play based. And then how we use it is play based within music. Whereas a play therapist would use play within music, or a speech therapist may focus on the speech within the play. So we can kind of specialize down in that area and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
specialize more in populations, but really that just looks like more experience rather than like a certification or a true specialty.
Right, right. That makes sense. So, going back to collaboration, what are some really cool ways that you have collaborated with caregivers and therapists after you learned like from other experiences? What are you now like, okay, let's get a meeting going or let's do this, let's do that. What are some of the ways that you do now?
Yeah, one of my favorite ways is just kind of how my job is set up. We're on a team for the Medicaid waiver. So there might be a
Mhm.
rec therapist and a behavior consultant and a PAC staff. So I try to attend as many waiver team meetings as possible because even if we don't think that the rec therapy update applies to us, it does. We are a wraparound
Mhm.
team. We should all be aware of what the others are doing and don't always have time to like read through everybody's reports.
Mhm.
So I've seen that beneficial in getting medication updates, being like, oh, they're on this now. Okay, well, that explains why they're so tired in my sessions. They're going through big changes. Or rec therapy's like, yeah, I'm really trying to get her to talk about mantras. And I was like, oh, girl, I got a whole song about that. Here, use this. So I find those incredibly valuable. For parents, I talk to parents before and after every session. That is changed based on who my client is because there's still like privacy within therapy. And sometimes
Mhm.
that's a collaboration between me and the client to say, what are we sharing with mom today? We know that she wants to know what you did in therapy, but that doesn't mean that we talk about this deep lyric analysis we did. Maybe we tell her how
Mhm.
cool it was you played a new song on the bells and like isolated your finger well. So sometimes it's
Mm.
collaboration with the client in that way. Other times, the parents will update me before by like texting me an update, like, hey, they talk about this. This is the context for it. Um, and then really just keeping those open lines of communication. I feel like I'm able to provide more like empathy with them or provide more support where I'm able to or provide more resources because by taking time before and after it's showing that like you care about their life outside of well it's time for music come on get over there then
Right,
we
right.
are apart.
Right. I have learned so much, Shelley. Like I feel like I want to keep you here for hours and hours to just tell me all the things and help me become a music therapist in like the next 6 months.
Beautiful.
So, where can our listeners, learn more about you, learn about your work, what you're doing with music therapy and AAC? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So if you're looking specifically for AAC resources, I have a new course out that goes through basic AAC principles. And what I really love is I went app by app for the major robust communication systems and broke it down. What are we looking at? How do I work it? How do I add buttons? How do I know when to add a button and when not to? And things like that. Um, if you're like, that was super cool, I want to learn so much more. I do presentations. I can go to work to like public schools, private schools, or universities. If you're like, that was cool, but I don't need quite all that knowledge, that's a bit much for me, then Instagram is really the best place to find me. I am on Notes, the number 2, Live By. That's my business. And then I'm also on Learn with Mainstay, which is where I work, Mainstay Music Therapy. And our Learn with Mainstay page is really geared towards AAC business ownership, hospice and supervision and providing resources, new thoughts. There were business updates that came out last week that we posted about. So that's really a good place.
Awesome, awesome. I'm sure that my listeners are going to hop over there as soon as possible because I know that they're super excited about all of this as much as I am. And all of that will be linked in the show notes along with different like link worthy things that she's offering my listeners as well, freebies and all of that. So again, thank you so much, Shelley. This has been amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.